Welcome to the Due Diligence Podcast, where we explore how leaders make and execute their biggest decisions, from transactions to founding organizations to career pivots and beyond. This podcast is produced by Sleeping Giant Capital. We connect executive talent and capital to invest in West Michigan businesses. To learn more, visit us at sleepinggiantcapital.com or stop by our office in downtown Kalamazoo.
Hi, I'm Justin Murray, and I'm an executive in residence at Sleeping Giant Capital. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. My co-host Doug Lepisto and I speak with Jim Valk, partner at UHY Advisors in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We will explore Jim's journey of starting, growing, and selling a small business in West Michigan. We hope you enjoy our conversation. All right. Well, welcome, Jim. It's good to see you.
It's good to be here.
We hope you had a great holiday season. And during the holidays, we connected with one of your colleagues and found out some fun facts about you. We heard you're a triathlete, which is which is exciting. So we want to hear more about that and what you're maybe training for. But the one we really wanted to dive into is it sounds like you have a cat named Dowdell. It's maybe a barn cat that very mischievous.
Wow, yeah, interesting. Yeah, so
do you see why I thought you guys went way back?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the cat's name is actually Doderlik.
Okay.
And Doderlik is the Dutch word for lethal or killer. So that's we were having mole issues and some mice in the barn issues, and so we got the advice to get a cat. So we got a kitten and we named it Doderlik, but that was too hard to pronounce for everybody, so we just started calling it Dodel. But this cat has lived up to its name. She regularly dumps stuff on our back porch, and I tell you, she's become quite the rabbit.
Really, what's the biggest varmint?
I mean, there's been rabbits on our back that are bigger than she is. I mean, we're talking like this. Birds, we've seen her actually stalk up in a tree and watch and jump out and pounce on a bird and get it down. So she is she's lived up
to the killer name.
She's lived up to her killer name.
And when you bought the cat, is it specifically like is that what they're known for, or does this one just have a
just hey, we need a cat, and does anybody know who might have a cat? So it was a friend of the family. Their barn cat had a bunch of kittens and was like, you can have one. So so we had no idea. We had heard the females were better hunters than the boys were. So we wanted a female cat, but
so you a cat guy, not a dog guy?
I'm not a cat guy.
You're not a cat guy.
Not a cat
the cat's just solving problems.
Okay.
The cat is solving problems. I am a dog guy.
A dog guy.
Don't
Okay.
have dogs,
I was gonna take you for a dog guy, but yeah.
So
right.
Interesting enough, my sisters they can't believe I have a cat because I'm just not a cat guy.
But it lives in the barn and just
it lives in the barn.
Everything else
lives in the barn, but if we're outside, it follows us.
Well, that's all I was told is just ask about the barn cat.
So
I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
And then about triathlons, you training? You doing some of those recently?
A little bit. So just a little bit of a backstory. So, I kind of a number of years ago kind of got back into exercising, started to drop some pounds, started to feel pretty good. And so I thought, hey, why don't I go to the doctor and find out how healthy I am? Only to learn that I was a diabetic. The whole routine of being active just became that much more important. So I started setting various goals. And, one of the early ones was, I'd wanted to run a 5K, which it just seemed out of reach. And, you did that and then you start thinking about other stuff. And then my son kind of challenged me a little bit. He wanted to do a triathlon. And then, I thought, well, okay, if I do a triathlon, if you're biking, yeah, you kind of get tired, slow down, you're running, you walk. But the swimming part, you can't really stop. Um, and that part scared me. So yeah, I got in the pool. We did one together. Um, and then you're kind of maybe hooked a little bit on that, the sense of accomplishment. And so you do one that's a little bit bigger and longer. Um, so, and then of course COVID hit, and that kind of changed everything. So actually, I had a couple years off, and then last year, my son and I did another one. So one of the smaller ones. So yeah, so this year we're hoping to maybe do.
Nice. What's the toughest leg for you? So you have bike, swim, run.
Oh, by far the running now. Interesting
Okay.
enough, the swim is probably my strongest part now. But I'm not a runner, I kind of plod like a horse or something. So that's by far the hardest.
I ran the Chicago Marathon a few years ago, and so then I was like, well, I should definitely do a triathlon next. I got in the pool and I did one length. It was just so out of breath, and it was like I need adult swim lessons, and I don't think I'm going to sign up for those, and so I've never done one. But I really the swimming for me is the hard one. So I got to get in the pool because it's a great exercise.
It is. I mean, the distance is one thing, but when you compete in a triathlon, the swimming part, the first part of it is brutal. I mean, you're like you're in a washing machine. I mean, it's just everybody's kind of kicking and swatting, and it's hard to get into any type of rhythm and breath and stroke because somebody's foot comes up or somebody's hand comes down on top of you, and until things start spreading out a little bit, it's a little brutal up front. So
do you do most of them in Michigan, or have you gone out of state, or where?
we've all of mine have been in Michigan. So
yeah. Get the cold lake water somewhere.
Yeah. So yeah.
Good. Well, those are great great intro stories. Do you want to just tell the audience quickly, maybe a little bit about your current role? You're in public accounting, so would love to just, you started your own firm back in 1994. Can you just give us the quick history of
I'll give
I'll
give you a brief history. So CPA, been in public accounting for a little over 35 years now. So, but I started out in Kalamazoo with a firm that was it was called Ernst & Winnie back then. Ernst & Winnie was one of the big 8 firms, largest 8 in the world. And then in the early 90s, there started to be some mergers happening amongst those firms. And today you now got the big 4, and that's the result of some of them merging together, some of them not being there anymore. But Ernst & Winnie merged with Arthur Young, became Ernst & Young. And, as part of Ernst & Young's strategic planning, they decided they didn't want to be in some of the smaller markets, which they deemed smaller markets. Kalamazoo was not one that they wanted to be in anymore. So they basically decided to kind of pull out of the community, move their bigger jobs up to Grand Rapids. And so at that stage, there were 3 of us who decided that, we had various options, but we decided that we would probably be better served if we started our own firm. And so there were 3 of us that started the firm. We hired 7 or 8 people from Ernst at that time, started our firm in 1994, and was very successful early on. We had a lot of good talent. The community was open to that. We had individually, we all had good reputations. So it took off from there. One of the partners ended up being wooed by Stryker. He became the director of tax for Stryker Corporation. The other one has since retired, but over the years we've added and grown, and we took that first year a $700,000 firm into 2022 a $5.2 million firm. So we did that for 28 years. Became one of the largest firms in Kalamazoo, maybe the biggest local firm. And then made the decision that was in our best interest to merge our practice into UHY. UHY is a top 30 firm in the country. They're very prominent on the east side of the state, so we're kind of their start of the west side of the state, but cultures aligned. What they kind of offered us made a lot of sense, and I mean, I loved being our own and all that came with it, but it just felt like it was time to read what was happening in the industry and out there, that this was a better move for all of us. But yeah, so over the years, I'm a tax guy. That's my specialty. That's what I've done over the years. So I continue to do that along with, as part of our firm, we had an office in Dowagiac too. So I continue to manage both the Kalamazoo and Dowagiac office while working on tax stuff for a lot of clients in Kalamazoo. So
nice. There's a lot to unpack there. I guess going back to when you left Ernst & Whinney or Ernst & Young, so you're coming from a big 8 firm then to a local firm with a few folks and hiring some more. So how were the early days, and what's maybe some things you learned on hiring, and now you got to set up systems and whatever else kind of comes with that? What were some of the growing pains, I guess, as you started?
Yeah. So, I think some of those, there are definitely some of those growing pains, things that you might have taken for granted, being part of a bigger organization, that now all of a sudden you have to do. You have to figure out not only what health insurance you want, but where you're going to go to get it. Who sells that kind of stuff? Okay, where do you find a fax machine? Okay, what's a good brand? What's, all of that sort of stuff. So, I think one thing I would say along those lines, and even when you're talking any type of mergers and acquisitions, is, you just don't realize how much there is to do with that, and it takes a lot of time and effort, but align yourself with peers, with colleagues, with advisors that have been through that process, and utilize them. And that's what, we had all, had so much experience with all our clients. So, we said, okay, well, who do you get your health insurance through? Where do you do this? Where do you do that?
Yeah, I was going to ask. So oftentimes the CPA is the trusted advisor. We see that a lot, right? When we're working through deals, it's usually an attorney and a CPA involved. So now you're usually the trusted advisor. Now you're looking for trusted advisors to build your business. So you said you were working maybe back with clients and asking them.
Absolutely. Learning from them where some of they got some of those sort of things. And you clients, over the years for me too, clients have, I've had a number of clients that have been mentors to me, in the business world. I had an attorney in Grand Haven who had owned a number of businesses, and I'd run things past him, or sometimes he'd call me and he'd say, "You don't seem yourself. What's going on?" I'm like, "I'm trying to figure this out." Tell me about it. So, so find your mentors and find your help, because there's a lot to learn. So,
are you what do you think explains why someone like you decides to take that leap? You didn't know health insurance. There's 75 things you don't know when you start a firm, become a new owner operator. There's 75, and some people like that, some people don't. What was it about that got you to do that? Because some people are that's a leap they don't want to take.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because actually, during that process, Ernst wanted me to move up to Grand Rapids. They had offered me, "Hey, you can stay with the firm. We'll move you up to Grand Rapids." And then the three of us were kind of like, so, for sure job, doing what I know what I'm doing. Actually grew up in the Grand Rapids area, be an easy move or something brand new. And I think it was really the excitement about being able to put your footprint on something, the excitement to build something yourself. I mean, even as we were part of Ernst, I could see that there were things that we couldn't do, or things that Ernst made us do things a certain way that now we could do them our own way. And we thought that they would be better. Um, and that's part of what I loved about all of that. I mean, being your own boss, but the efforts and the energy that you put into it was to see something built from that, and know that you've got ownership in that. It's just an extremely rewarding um, situation. So yeah, if the excitement and the energy and the motivation to do something like that was what really uh, made me want to do that.
That's cool. And then I guess as you go through all the client work that you've done, so you're advising clients on all sorts of different, individual tax situations, business tax situations. What are maybe some things that you've, like, as you're seeing other business owners, maybe what are some traits that you've noticed in them, over the years? Like, are they similar to you or different in terms of the businesses they've built?
Well, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, so there were things that I did pick up from clients that I worked on. One of the clients that I worked on still is a client of mine today, but they had someone in that organization, extremely successful organization, and as I kind of watched him and talked to him, the thing that I thought he was really, really good at was simply building relationships. And so the the employees loved working for him because he had a relationship with everybody there. His customers loved him. He could sell to anybody, but he had the relationships with the customers. Vendors, I mean, everybody that he touched, he had this relationship with. And he utilized having that relationship with them in order to make them the most of it. Um, and so I really kind of made that decision early on in my career. That was something that was really kind of part of me, but it just made so much sense. And so that was something that, up to this day, I try and come back to that, whether it's an employee or whether it's a client or whether it's a vendor, and knowing that, if you're buying something from somebody else, they're in a business, they've got to make a profit. Um, you just need a fair price. You don't need to get something for the cheapest, and understanding all that aspects. But investing in your people and having a relationship with them and trying to have relationships with your clients, it just creates an environment that I think um, the business is naturally going to grow. You're going to create some loyalty, um, but people are also they want to refer you. Hey, give Jim a call. Give so and so a call. I got a great relationship with them, type of thing. So I think that was key. Um, somebody had taught me early on about along those lines, but as far as when you're out with clients, and I tell some of our younger staff this too, gave me the acronym POGO. Okay, POGO. All right, POGO. So if you want to develop a relationship with somebody, here's the approach for it. POGO. Okay, people. Start talking to them. All right, Doug, what's your background? Okay, where'd you go to school? Okay, got a cat? Whatever. You start talking about, everybody loves talking about themselves. Okay, you move from talking about the person or the people and their background into the organization. How did you start this business? How did you get into it? And then from there, you move into, well, what are your goals? What are you hoping to do? You know, what are you guys hoping to do with Sleeping Giant? Where's it going? Okay, you're expanding next door. Okay, you know, what's the setup going to be like? What do you see yourself down the road? And then, you know, what are, you know, for you, maybe as someone in that profession, is the O can either be finding out what their obstacles are on getting to their goals, or then also maybe what the opportunities are. So, you know, that was something that.
So it's like Pogo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, nice.
Right. Yeah, I'm not real good at spelling, but, you know. Yeah, so, yeah. So, you know, there's some things like that. The other thing that I think, you know, I learned from clients too is, you know, the industry changes. Whatever industry you're in, the market's changed, all of that sort of stuff. And if you want to constantly be in business, you've got to figure out what the next life cycle of your own business is. And just take something as simple as VCR tapes. I mean, all of a sudden, you know, everybody's got a VCR player, they got a VCR tape, and, you know, you see these rental places all over the place. But we all know today, none of them are around anymore, you know, because that life cycle of VCR tapes peaked and then it went down. And when they start going down, they really never come back up. So you got to find the next one and the next one. Okay, VCR tapes. Okay, all right, discs. You know, okay, well, now discs are, you know, it's all streaming. So it doesn't matter what business you're in, whether you're a CPA firm or manufacturing or whatever. You've got to look and try and figure out where those life cycles are. And for us in that profession, that was kind of what started really us thinking maybe we're going to be better aligning with somebody else, because you know, we've been reading the trends and we got in at the right times on technology and going paperless and being able to work remote, all those sort of trends that we tried to be on top of and deal with. And then, you know, COVID, and you're kind of looking in labor markets and you're thinking, okay, all right, how are we going to manage to get all this work done, be able to provide for our clients, and provide opportunities and career opportunities for our employees. And, you know, we think that you're going to see more mergers in the accounting profession, but being able to align yourself with the right person. And we had a couple other suitors, but they just weren't right. And seeing maybe where some of those trends are going, we felt like, well, we'd rather pick our suitor than maybe be in a industry and a profession 3 years from now where you don't have as much of a choice on who you want to align your efforts with. So it was really kind of looking to the future and where we saw the trends going that we felt like this was probably a good decision for us.
Got it. When you mentioned life cycle of a business, I was just curious when you're talking with your clients, and they're talking through maybe business planning or succession planning and trying to figure out what's next in the life cycle of their business. What are some things that, you know, that you try to do to coach them on, you know, is it the right time to sell? Have you thought about the types of firms that you would sell to? I guess, can you walk through maybe how that presents itself to you as an advisor, and then some of the conversations that you have with business owners on that?
Yeah. So, you know, I think that is somewhat of a trying to be somewhat of a regular discussion. What you'll run into sometimes is you'll see where certain products or certain tasks that they do, where you'll start to see revenues drop a little bit, or the margins starting to taper off a little bit. And, I think that's really the stage where you've got to really challenge them to think about, rather than hanging on to what you've always done, is to, what maybe do you have to do differently? Um, and, some that's received better than others. I think a lot of times, you're in an environment where the owner or the entrepreneur is the one that created something, developed something, and it's hard to kind of let go of that. There's an emotional piece to that, and that's another piece that I try and talk to clients about too, especially if you're looking to sell or buy, is to be careful of the emotions that go along with that. Um, so, yeah, looking at some of that, some of where those trends are, and trying to challenge them to think about what that is. Um, and along those lines, it comes, the discussion naturally kind of goes into, if you're looking to the future, is that a um, is that a joint venture with somebody? Okay, well, if we had this aspect to it, or if we got into this, but we don't really know how to do that piece. Okay, is that something that you partner with? Is that something you go out and buy? Or are you at the stage that maybe you're appealing to somebody else that now it's time to sell? And you guys obviously see a lot of that. I mean, you got a number of things going on here. You've got a bunch of baby boomers that are retiring and kind of getting out, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the baby boomers.
Say more about the emotional piece, I guess, because I think we feel that, right? When you're trying to buy a company, it's like, oh man, what's my life going to look like? This could be great. It's all running through your head. So it's easy to get emotional, I'm sure, for the seller as well, right? I've run this for 25 years. What's going to happen to my people? So how do you manage emotions through a transaction?
Yeah. So, so this is something that when we're down that road, I talk to them, depending on what side. So what you will see a lot on the buyer side is even what I talked about earlier, this motivation and this desire. I want to own this business. Justin, you want to own a business. And so you become so emotionally attached to the thought of owning your own business that you start losing focus in on the aspects of the deal. And I will tell you that I've seen it on the other side a number of times. Is specifically, I'll see it in the attorneys, and I apologize. I mean, attorneys got their own, but they will look for that aspect in a deal. And if they see a buyer that's so emotionally attached to doing it, that's when they kick in, because now, oh, and by the way, we need you to do this. Oh, and by the way, yeah, we don't want to do that anymore. But the buyer is so emotionally attached that they're willing to accept things. And so that's part of that discussion. Okay. I get it, but that's where you gotta lean on your advisors. That's where you gotta lean on your CPA. You've got to lean on your own attorney. You've got to have those checks and balances where somebody's making sure the deal still makes sense. And then what you alluded to a little bit, Justin, is on the seller side, you've got that individual who has put their sweat equity into building this thing. I mean, weekends and nights. And so they think they're going to get
$100 million.
$100 million
Yeah.
because this thing is worth so much. And
no one has anything like it.
No one has.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you've got to talk them off that ledge a little bit. And absolutely. But this is your baby. This is like a child or a spouse. It's part of who you are. but you got to step back from the emotional piece. And
do you think there's one key emotion? Like, you hear a lot about sellers in this rolling 5-year period. I'm going to sell in 5 years. I'm going to sell in 5 years, 5 years. And then all of a sudden, they're 75 years old. What do you think is maybe like the one thing that people are held up on, that just can't get them to, find a transition plan?
I don't,
Most common, I guess.
yeah, I think they don't know what they're going to do with themselves. I mean, if you have an entrepreneur that's built that business, it takes up so much of their life.
So it's an identity thing.
Maybe. Yeah. And what am I going to do if I don't have this? How am I going to occupy my time? What I will see with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they need a problem to solve. They need something to keep them up at night. And so sometimes we'll have that discussion. Somebody say, "Yeah, I'm gonna sell," or I think we're gonna do this. I'm like, "Well, then what are you gonna do?" "Well, I don't know, play golf." I'm like, "No, that's not you. I know you. That's not you. You thirst for a problem to sell." And so I think typically those type of people are like that, and they think, "Well, what am I going to do? What problem am I going to solve? What needs me after this?" Because they're not the type of person that's just going to, buy a beach house and golf.
Yep.
All day.
Is that a problem that a buyer should try to solve, or is that something that they need to solve themselves?
I think it can be both.
Just take them golfing.
Let's take them golfing. Well, hey, you've been telling me about this shipping problem that you've had for the last 5 years. What if I operate the company and you just try to help figure that out, right? I mean, but there's pros and cons to that, right? Because then the owner's there, and then
100%. So I think, I think some of the smoothest transactions that I've seen work over the years are where the buyer and the seller truly have a relationship where they know where their positions are. So yeah, I think that is sometimes, I think the buyer can help solve that, either by having that person stick around, but it's got to be the right thing, because a lot of times it doesn't make sense. But I think the other aspect is, a seller's just, to a degree, you gotta come to terms with that. Otherwise, ultimately, you're probably going to lose value. The longer you wait to do that, you might not be selling at the right time. The older you are, the older you get, the less likely you are to be looking for the next life cycle. And so your business has started to maybe go on down. So you're not selling at the right time. But look for things to do. Volunteer for somebody. Be a mentor. Whatever, to help have your mind active. Yeah.
In your role, Jim, what separates great advisors from not so great ones? Because there's a lot of great tax folks out there. They've worked with small businesses. What should a business owner be looking for as they start to this succession exit planning process? What makes someone stand out in your role that's way beyond what they would typically get?
That's a great question. So what you're basically asking is what do I do?
What makes you? Because I can imagine a lot of business owners. I have my my attorney, I have my tax person, guy or gal, but what separates your counsel that makes it better?
Yeah. So I would say probably a couple of things. So I think an advisor that understands who their client is very helpful, rather than trying to put your client in some sort of box. Okay, you need to do this, and then you need to do that, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and I'll see that. Well, you can't do that, or that won't work. But the advisor that understands maybe what the triggers are for their client. I'll give you a quick example. Dealing with a client right now that's looking at selling their business, and we're got a company interested in them. They're kind of threw out a ballpark, and the attorney and I were talking to them, and we're like, "Well, we think the price is low. We think we can move them." And the the client is at the stage where they're not looking for every last penny, and they're looking to get a fair price and get out, but they got a suitor. Let's get the deal done. So let's be careful. And I think, I read that fairly quickly is okay. We're not, let's not push back real hard on this. Let's push back a little bit. So being able to see that and not put them in some sort of box, and you have to do things this way or you have to do that, and then listening to what their issues are. What are their hot points? What are their keys? And one of the things that I get involved in on mergers and acquisitions from the tax side is the whole structure of the deal. So that's where that kind of becomes this for me, this problem to solve, and this, okay, I want this, and this. Okay, how do we get there? How do we get there? Let's not just assume it's the conventional way, but what if we did this, or what if we did that? So I think it's knowing your client, understanding what they're like, but also um, uh, understanding what the keys are and trying to solve that problem maybe in a different way than what's maybe just the traditional way to do
It almost sounds like, if you connect what you just said to what you said earlier, that, I mean, you're a tax accountant, and what you've said consistently in the conversation is it's about emotional intelligence, listening, put it in that bucket, and then some measure of creativity,
right?
And relationship.
Relationship. Yep. Absolutely.
So then so you've advised, so you started your own, I mean, this is what's so cool. So you started your own business, you've advised a bunch of people in, growing, selling, all sorts of things. Then now you have recently merged or
Yep.
sold, I mean, whatever
Merged,
the transaction,
yep.
merged with UHY. So now you've been on the side of now merging, selling. So now when you're on that side, what was maybe, you've advised so many clients along the way. What was different now going through it yourself?
So the transactional part of a deal is it's difficult. It's just difficult. And it's difficult from many aspects. And trying to, having been through that, and then having clients that are going through that or advising on that, and trying to manage their expectations on that, whether it's the emotions or understanding, here, well, hey, I'm going to tell the attorney, I just want the deal to be a, 3-page deal. That's all okay, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Well, they said we're going to close by the end of the month. Okay. That's not going to happen. Okay. So there's that, trying to manage some of those expectations about how complex and how difficult it is to work through all the minute details, and trying to be prepared for that, and trying to advise your clients to be prepared for that. But now all of a sudden having to go through it yourself. And I mean, there were times that I think we all had to kind of step back and go, okay, we're getting a little emotional about this. Okay, is this a big deal or not?
What is that when you say getting them? What does that look like?
Anger, frustration.
You're getting an email, you're getting a phone call, and you're just like, I'm so sick of this. I'm sick of this deal. I'm not liking the, whatever the person on their side.
Where did this aspect come?
Where did all of a sudden
this
one
come
more
from?
thing in due diligence.
One
Why
more
do they need
thing,
this?
that kind of stuff. But usually it comes out.
And then what do you do with that emotion?
Triathlon.
Watch the cat?
Yeah, right. I think you, you got to take yourself out of the situation. You got to okay, this is, again, okay, I built this firm, whatever. What's the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And is this aspect important or not? And, okay, yeah. So we got to get through this period of time and get through these things. And I will tell you, you got to have attorneys involved, and there's a lot of good things, but boy, they sure can complicate things. And I think sometimes the anger actually is more at the legal side than even the other side, because they're desperately trying to protect their client one way or another.
Did you find, speaking on relationship, did you find you tried to have did the buyer try to have a relationship with you deeper than just the transaction?
Absolutely.
Was there a lot of coffee, dinner, things like that?
For us, and they're all part of who we are now. So, we deal with them, and actually the people that we are dealing with, we kind of report to now. But absolutely, and whenever we started running into any issues, it just went back to the original parties, and that's where they were solved. Okay, all right, this is just showed up in the agreement, but that's not what we had talked about. That's not what we were sure was going to happen. Yep, you're right. That isn't okay. Let's fix it. Or we really need that because of this, and this. Okay, so it got back to really them and us, and quite honestly, we were almost always on the same page. Good. So
maybe the advice there is not to lose sight of the original parties, not to be overwhelmed by all the advisory parties, and
how about you have kids.
Yep.
How important was your spouse in this process?
That's kind of an interesting question. So I think your spouse in one of the things, because certainly in public accounting, you work a lot of hours, but if you're going to own a business, you have got to have the support of your spouse, significant other. It is a team thing, whether they are part of the organization or not. It is a team thing. And so, for me, I think there was probably some things that I didn't necessarily tell my spouse, because I didn't want her to worry about things that, just needed to be worked out. But certainly she was huge in being my sounding board, talking through things, and all along the way for me. Through my entire career, when I've had to work and do things, she's picked up the slack. So, I couldn't overemphasize that part that you've got to have.
What's more critical to getting the deal closed, the attorneys or the spouse?
That's a good question. I would say it probably depends.
Yeah. All right, good. We'll go to, so we got really final 3 questions that we usually go through. So this is just kind of a little bit of rapid fire. So maybe so there's a lot of terms in public accounting, M&A. What's your favorite term that gets maybe overused or used a lot in your office?
In my office, I was going to say in the industry.
Yep, that's fine too.
EBITDA. Everybody wants to talk about EBITDA, but nobody knows what EBITDA is. What's my EBIT day? You know, we're going to measure our EBIT day. Okay. Well, why are you measuring its EBITDA and why are you measuring it? I don't know. Everybody tells me.
Everybody tells.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. So, okay, let's talk
Adjusted EBITDA.
Yeah. Let's talk about what that is a little bit and why. I mean, don't just measure it. Let's you know.
So accounting profession, highly, you know, as we talked about earlier, right, 150 hours, so a lot of schooling. What's maybe the most important thing you've learned, you know, going in your career that maybe you didn't get taught in school?
Well, I will tell you about the accounting profession is, I mean, you really got to take the movies and the old, you know, pencil protector and green shade lamp and, you know, visor and no personality, and you really got to throw it out.
So you're here to tell accounting is cool.
Oh my gosh,
that's what you're
so
here
cool.
to say.
But it is such an interesting profession, and the the variety that you can go into from having been in the accounting profession is so wide open. I mean, you can do bookkeeping or internal accounting type stuff. You can go into public accounting, and if you go into public accounting, you can specialize in so many different things. So, you know, one of the niches we have is an international uh, tax component, cross-border taxation stuff. You know, Doug, you're talking about somebody who's expanding into Canada. Well, what's the tax aspects? You know, that's way beyond any debits credit. You can become a certified fraud examiner and work on embezzlement cases and try and figure out, you know, what somebody stole from something. I mean, the possibilities in this profession are just absolutely wide open, and the demands for people in our profession are only going up. Things in the world get more complex. You need people that can understand the financial aspects of all different things. So I don't think I ever had any type of clue as to what was open in the accounting profession out there.
We'll snip that clip and put it on your website, is on the recruiting page on the website.
There you go. Solid. Well, I one of the things I love doing is talking to accounting students. You know, I've done it at Western a number of times, Southwest Michigan College in Dowagiac. We got an office down there, and you know, I love having those discussions, and it's fun to see the students and the questions that I start getting from them. I mean, they just had no idea what all of that could happen.
It's a great foundation for business, right?
It is. I mean, you if you look at a lot of presidents, CEOs of organizations, you look how many of them, you look back on their experience, how many of them either had some sort of degree in accounting or maybe functioned in some sort of finance world first before they were running a business.
Yep. All right. Last question. So you're from Grand Rapids. You've been in Kalamazoo area for many, many years. So what is, you know, someone comes to Kalamazoo, many people think of Bell's and, you know, some of the big names. What is your off the beaten path place that you like to go? Restaurant, golf course? Like what's maybe the secret gem that you'd like to share with us?
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I absolutely love West Michigan, all of West Michigan. I think it's the variety and the diversity in this place. I think it's a phenomenal place to live and grow. For me, You know, I think beforehand I kind of mentioned to you guys. I mean, I'm a country boy. I grew up in the country, and having the ability to have some space, for me, I've got home. I've got almost 70 acres, and you know, so the cat has plenty of space to find things to hunt. But you know, whether it's snowmobiling or um, you know, being out on my tractor, whatever, having that open space, but really being so close that really anything you want. I mean, you're 30.
Yeah, but if you had to pick a restaurant, Jim,
If I had to pick a restaurant,
that no one knows.
Oh, well, I would pick one that a lot of people around here know.
What's
I
off
mean,
the beaten path for Jim that you'd have that you'd
okay, well,
Early
off the
morning
beaten
breakfast
path,
meeting. Yeah.
probably Big T's in Lawton with their 300 different beers.
All right, Big
T's
T's.
in Lawton.
Never been.
You've never been?
No.
Oh my word! You need to go. So they have what they call their wall of foam. Okay, and they have their own beer club, and they probably have 300 different beers.
Okay.
And so
Big T's.
Big T's, and you can get beer from all different places in the world. So
All right,
try
we'll check
it and join their beer club. And once you get to 130, you can get your name on the wall of foam.
There we go. I'll be a goal of Doug's.
Yes,
2023.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. This is fun. Thanks for what you guys are doing in this community. I love that you are vested in West Michigan, that you're looking to support entrepreneurs and those that are looking to pass on that business. Keep it here. I think it's a great concept, and love that you guys are here in this community.
Thanks, Jim.
Great.
Thanks for all your help.
All right.